Welcome to The Culture. We rest at the pulse of the community, providing all things news, music, fashion, events, and everything that we talk about in between. It's a lifestyle. We are The Culture. Welcome to the show today. I'm your host, Jessica Garrett Motkins, and it is all about the election today. Joining us, we have New Florida Majority Political Director, Senior Senator Dwight Bullard. Thank you for joining us today. Senator Bullard, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I do apologize. I'm here trying to make technology work for me, and it's failing.
Got it. Look, that almost sounds like what's going on with this election. A couple of groups are trying to make technology work for them. Let's start locally and unpack what we do know, since there are still some variables out there from a national standpoint. But locally, we witnessed a historic election for Miami with our first woman mayor-elect, Daniela Cava.
Yeah. It was I'm sure we're going to get into national, but it was a dynamic day for women. But yeah, here in Miami-Dade County, first female mayor, most recent, I guess, Democratic or progressive mayor in the last almost 20 plus years since the last time we had someone who had a D next to their name. We have a complete shift in the county commission. Unfortunately, we do not have any Black women on the county commission for the first time in a long time.
Right.
But we do have some folks with very capable hearts and minds. The former mayor of Miami Gardens, Oliver Gilbert, now joins us. Former state representative and Democratic leader Keone McGee will be representing District 9, and District 3 will be represented by current city commissioner, soon to be former city commissioner, Keon Hardeman. So a lot of new changes, but some familiar faces, and I think that should be helpful in terms of getting things done here in Miami-Dade County.
That's true. You touched on the fact that there were no Black women on the commission now. Do you see that dynamic may play some role in some sort of way?
Well, representation matters at the end of the day. And so I think it's important for women such as yourself, women leaders from around the county to play a role in holding, this commission accountable. I mean, yes, you have a female mayor who has, like, I guess, a feminist perspective or a feminist lens, but having Black women and the specificity around, what the needs of Black women in particular are, is something that is going to be super important to lift up, because you don't actually have a Black woman on the commission.
Yes, we do have the familiar faces, McGee, Gilbert, and Hardeman. So that goes into play here locally. And then we had some election in the Miami Gardens, Opa-locka. Can you speak to those changes?
Yeah, so new mayor of Miami Gardens, Rodney Harris, is now going to be the mayor of Miami Gardens. Has been on the council there for a little while, so folks are familiar with him. But it's really going to now lean on some of the newer members, like Linda Julian, who has some experience. Some of the older members, like Katrina Wilson, who are going to be on that council, to sort of move the city in a continued progressive direction. Black businesses nationally, but Black businesses in Miami Gardens have been hit by the pandemic. And so making sure that there's space for new business owners, for new types of business owners. In a city like Miami Gardens, which is, as we know, the second largest Black city south of Atlanta. So it's important for that council to kind of recognize and step into that power and own the fact that they are, the home of Dolphin Stadium and the home of all these places where people go, and help out residents as a part of that. Like it's not just about the tourism; it's always going to be about the residents. But there has to be a cohesion there. And then other places, North Miami Beach now has a predominantly black Haitian council, or the potential to it. I know they have one seat that's still in a runoff. But you're starting to see a shift there in terms of the power of the Black vote. And I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about the power of the Black vote nationally, but you see that dynamic in play in these local spaces here in Miami-Dade County, and the significant role that they played in the election. So people have to, again, step into their power, and make the demand. Now they're seeing that shift happen.
That's good. As it relates to Black vote here locally, do we have those numbers that can delineate where we ended?
We don't have the full numbers yet in terms of the breakdown percentage of demographic groups yet. That's still to be determined. What we do have are the overall turnout number for Miami-Dade, which was sky high. It was 77% of all registered voters in Miami-Dade County, cast their ballot, which is super high. It can always go higher because that still means there's 23% of voters that chose not to vote. And then we also have to factor in the fact that there were so many returning citizens who, because of the finagling of the state legislature, weren't able to actually register to vote and thus cast their ballot. But I'm sure that's going to change mightily over the next 2 years. So you're talking about adding, again, thousands upon thousands of people to the voter rolls between now and the next presidential election, or even the gubernatorial election in 2022.
Mm-hmm. And then as it relates to just the vote, period, we did see a number of articles. I'm just going to call it what it was. There were several media outlets that depicted Black men and there being an apathy in voting. What do you have to say in regards to that? Because we talked about this a few weeks ago, and you voiced your opinion about it. But I want to see what are you thinking as it relates to where we are now.
Yeah, I don't like that characterization because it sets up the idea that somehow Black voter participation is deficient, or whatever the case may be. The hard numbers, the reality is that Black people voted a higher propensity than any other ethnic group in the country, in terms of percentage of the population, and that has been something that has been historic for us since getting the right to vote, primarily because those of us that do engage in the process view this as an opportunity to move ourselves forward, to move the community forward, right? And so that's historical, and that's oftentimes not reported. What we did see, coming out of Tuesday's election was a growing number of Black people that chose to vote for Trump. We're not gonna act like that wasn't the case. But I don't think that that's apathy or kind of Black people losing their mind, so much as it is the ability for the Republican Party and Donald Trump himself to engage explicitly with a particular kind of Black people, right? And appeal to those folks on some level. And it's also a deficiency on the part of the Democratic Party to really take ownership of what they need to do to make sure the Black vote is met with the same sense of urgency that Black people tend to meet voting with. And what I mean by that is, to quote Janet Jackson, "What have you done for me lately?" Right, and that's always going to be the question, is because other communities always see, the benefit. You'll always hear about protection of LGBTQ rights. You always hear about making sure that folks have a pathway to citizenship through the immigration process. You always hear about, protecting the middle class. At some point, Black people want to hear themselves reflected in some of these policy decisions that say, hey, we know we've committed historical wrongs as a country. Hey, we know that the criminal justice system is out of whack. Hey, we know that Black women earn X amount of cents on the dollar in comparison to white men, and we're going to do what we have to do to correct those, to address those grievances that the Black community has, and rightfully so. And that's what's been missing, and hopefully over time that'll be the thing that changes.
There seemed to be towards the end of the campaigns where you had Black people speaking out about Democratic Party not courting them enough, not spending enough dollars in Black media, not putting forth an effort to really engage these voting blocks that we have here. You saw the Hispanic vote was out. They were courted. They've been talked about nationally, especially here locally in Miami, as if there are no other groups and of races that live here. Black people felt, from what I've heard and read, that they were overlooked by the party.
Oh yeah, undoubtedly. I think Democratic Party nationally and here at the state level got comfortable because Miami-Dade had always been this bastion of blue votes, right? And so, they had this conversation after 2016. They were like, well, Hillary got 60, Donald Trump got 40. But instead of saying that it could be 70-30 or it could be 75-25, they were just like, that's baked in. We don't have to do anything. And everything will be fine. And what ended up happening was you had Joe Biden getting about 54% to Donald Trump's 46%. And so what you saw there was a seismic shift in the attitude of the voters. So you can't have now increased voter turnout and then now an electorate that is super diverse in the way it's voting. And that's a concern for future elections that the Democratic Party needs to address, because that means not only did you lose some of your Black voter participation, you lost a lot of your Latinx voters that voted for Hillary in 2016 or voted for Obama in 2012. And that's, again, because you're not taking the necessary steps to make sure that their voices are being heard. Or, and this is important too, you're allowing the other side to paint you as a particular kind of thing, whether it be a socialist or a communist.
Right.
And you're not responding to that. You're not offering up anything different. And the thing about it is that you have all the tools in the toolbox to do it. I mean, you take the community of Hialeah, that was the largest enrollee community in the country for Obamacare. If you went through Hialeah over the last 10 years, you saw storefronts with the Obama O. So folks knew to come in to sign up for Obamacare in the heart of Hialeah, in the heart of, Cuban-centric Hialeah. And so for you not to have a message about them trying to take your health care away or them trying to do whatever, the same way in which, Republicans are offering up that you're a communist and a socialist, to combat that energy, you're going to get what you get. And And that's what we saw on Tuesday.
Yes, we did. Where are we now? Where are we now with this presidential election? We're days after. Not sure when we talked on Tuesday night, when we decided we weren't going to go live on Tuesday night,
Right.
that we would still be here where we are right now on Friday, where we still don't know, or the Associated Press has not projected who the actual winner is. But what do you think?
Well, I mean, they always said that this could be a possibility, and of course, in our hearts and minds, we were like, people wouldn't be crazy enough to vote for Trump twice. And what we found out was, yeah, a lot of people were just that crazy enough to vote for Trump twice. And so once we got over the initial shock of that it wasn't going to be some sort of landslide blowout side versus the other, we had to settle into the fact that this is going to be a while. I mean, the truth of the matter is, this is the process. So even when Barack Obama won in 2008, we were all excited and they called all the states, the same amount of time was being taken to count all the votes. It was just that there was such a wide enough gap to declare the candidate victorious versus the number of votes that were still left outstanding. In this case, we're talking about razor thin margins, and states that traditionally had not gone blue showing out. I'm wearing my Black Panther shirt because I'm shouting out Wakanda, and the Wakanda of the South, as we know, is Atlanta, Georgia. And the Wakanda of the North is Detroit, Michigan, right?
Exactly.
And so it's Black voters in all these spaces that are crushing it right now, and really, really helping to move the needle in one direction. And so, I was just reading a tweet by April Ryan, who's a White House correspondent that most folks know, and she said, "Well, if it's any indication as to what might be happening, they've doubled up the Secret Service presence around Joe Biden and declared the airspace over his house a no-fly zone, which is procedurally what you do when you now have a president-elect. So even though the announcement hasn't come down, a lot of the processes that happen when you become president are moving along with the anticipation that there will be an announcement coming soon. So get ready, for what I consider a celebration, but a momentary celebration on patting ourselves on the back of getting ourselves out of a tough situation. But we still got work to do. Mm-hmm. Jokingly, I know you're an AKA. They said that the fees for AKA gonna go up to $10,000 once.
Yes.
Yeah, because of the new vice president being the ultimate marketing.
Yes, the ultimate marketing brander for Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Yes,
indeed. Now, so congratulations,
Nancy Pelosi, who alluded to that earlier today, that when Trump gets out of office in a press conference today, and we're going, they haven't announced anything, Nancy. But to your point, protocol, things are being put in place and things are moving along, and that's where her sentiments came from. I am tired, as I believe a lot of Americans are, with this election and how close these votes are. Trump's allegations that there's voter fraud without there being any type of indication that there is any voter fraud. It is just taxing on all of our emotions right now.
That's real. That's real. I mean, I think the fatigue isn't just the election. I think the fatigue is the entire 4 years, right? I saw one quote from somebody saying, like, the last 4 years has felt like being strapped to a chair and watching a toddler play with a handgun, a loaded pistol, right? and like when I saw that, I was like, that's literally the energy. It's like you've been tied down, feeling like you couldn't do anything, and you just know that there's a possibility of danger, and it's just a matter of when, and you're just, and that tension, that anxiety, and I think that's what a lot of people are feeling, is that like collective, this might be over, but I still can't like take that deep breath of sigh that I need just yet until someone gives me the confirmation that it's like done, right? And so yeah, I feel 1,000% of that,
And then
and what people are.
let's talk about the Senate and the House as well and what that means. I believe the last time I checked, it was 48-48 for the Senate.
Yeah, it's unlikely that the Senate will be flipped per se, because right now I think it's 50, 53, 47. There were some pickups on the Democratic side. There's still to be determined Senate race in Georgia. It's going to be moved all the way to January with Raphael Warnock. Shout out to HBCU grads. He went to Morehouse.
Yes.
And so it is to be determined. One interesting scenario that a lot of people aren't talking about because the numbers may not be there, but if the Senate were to be 50-50, the tie-breaking vote would be the Vice President of the United States.
So facts in there, right?
Yeah. So that would be an interesting scenario if that were to be the case. So be on the lookout for that.
We have a question from Belinda. She said that she's tired too. I know, girl. I know. But we need to prepare for next steps. Any words regarding the 2022 election? And before you do that with the 2022 election, can we talk about where we are now and our next steps? Because after the election is declared, that we still have work to do. Can you speak to that and then also talk about the election coming up?
Yeah. I mean, we have to do some repair work, especially here in Miami-Dade County. We lost a bunch of state legislative seats. We're going into what we call redistricting, which is super important. I know we were pushing the census all this time, and this is where it gets real, because the population and where demographics are will determine the shape of commission districts, the shape of state house and state senate districts, the shape of congressional districts, and all that will happen right before the 2022 election. So what you're going to see there is every state senator, every state representative, all have to run for office at the same time. So the 2022 election is fully loaded. When I say fully loaded, I mean fully loaded, but it's also full of opportunity. Because again, everybody will be running in these newly formed districts, these newly shaped spaces that will shift and shape and look. Some will be subtle differences, others will be overwhelmingly different in terms of what that landscape looks like. So, to the question, if you know somebody who's thinking about running, 2022 is the opportune year to do it, because it's an unstable, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It's unstable in the sense that no one knows where the final lines will be drawn. So it's fair game for a lot of people. So folks who are thinking about organizing their community or their city where they are, or jumping into these political spaces, now's your time. Now's your time to figure out, what your move is if you're thinking about doing it. So I definitely encourage those who've been sitting on the sidelines wondering, all right, what am I going to do next? 2022 is your year.
Mm-hmm. And then amendment passed.
Yes, indeed. We got the minimum wage amendment passed. super important. Again, a lot of folks were freaking out because they think it means $15 on day one. It is a gradual increase to $15 between now and 2026, which, is both good and bad because I think people are deserving of $15 an hour now. But we also want to respect and honor folks who run small businesses, folks who need to make the adjustments to their books. But what we do know is that it will increase to $10 in September, and then $1 each year after that.
Okay, I was looking at Georgia and these 16 electoral votes, and then Nevada with these 6 electoral votes, and how they're looking at it now with the differences. Wasn't there a state that split their electoral votes? And
Yeah, Nebraska splits their electoral votes based on their congressional districts. And they've always done this. People haven't really thought about this, but Nebraska became super important this year because there was a scenario in which that one congressional district that was Democratic would have taken Vice President Biden from 269 to 270. Just that one electoral vote. And people were looking at that like, whoa. So that's been factored into this number. So the truth of the matter is that if the way the map is set up now, he's already been awarded the Nebraska electoral vote. And if he were to solidify Arizona and Nevada, he would have gotten the 270. But he only gets the 270 because of that one electoral vote in Nebraska.
So let's bring that a little local. Florida, 29.
Mm-hmm.
But you've seen the memes where the guy's like, you need to read the room. All of the major cities have voted Democrat.
Yeah.
The state of Florida still goes to Trump, the Republican. But how would that have factored in Florida? And is that a possibility that those 29 electoral college votes could have been split as well?
Well, no. Every state makes determination on their rules on how their electoral votes will be awarded. In the state of Florida, whoever wins the popular vote in Florida, whoever gets the most votes in the state of Florida, gets awarded all 29 electoral votes for the state. The state could make rules to apportion them if they wanted to. I seriously doubt that they would. Especially with a Republican-controlled legislature. But what I would say, and this goes to the more forward thinking, Florida is not uncommon in terms of having these blue pockets. The best example of a state that manages their blue pockets better than their red pockets, in my opinion, is California. California has 36 million people. When you look at their state in that blue-red map, you'll see that blue is San Francisco, Oakland, Los Angeles, and San Diego. That's their blue. Yet and still, they're automatically pushed into the overall blue column, even though places like Sacramento, upstate, Northern California are super bright red, because there are just more people there. So when we think about that with Florida, if we get overwhelming turnout in Miami, overwhelming turnout in Tampa and Orlando, overwhelming turnout in Jacksonville, overwhelming turnout in Broward and Palm Beach, Tallahassee, those blue dots that you saw on the map, if when I say overwhelming turnout and overwhelming participation, I'm talking about going back to that 75-25. If each one of those counties went 75% or 80% in favor of the trend line, the Democratic trend line, the other counties wouldn't matter as much. Can we get there? I don't know. It's to be determined. I mean, you just have a lot of people who have their opinions about this, that, or the other. But it'd be a dream of mine to actually see that kind of, control being wielded by the major cities in Florida.
Yeah, that would be huge.
No doubt.
It's doable.
I don't see why it's not. I mean, we have the attitudes here. I mean, when I look at it like this, like Mississippi, for instance, Mississippi, yes, that in my cricket letter, passed medicinal marijuana. Were able to change their state flag from that, old stars and bars flag that they had that was so embarrassing with folks. And so that took work, but it's because of places like Jackson, where you have now a lot more staunch Democrats as their largest city in the state, and now they're starting to control and influence. They haven't gotten the governor's mansion yet, but they're able to pass these statewide initiatives that are so important. And you're looking at other states. I think there were four states this year that now have legalized recreational marijuana. New Jersey, all these other states. And I'm not saying that for people who are users of it, but it shows kind of the attitude of communities to say that we're no longer okay with criminalizing something that is so mundane and so out there in the open for so many people. I mean, Dr. Dre made an album called The Chronic in the 90s, right? So this isn't anything new. And so the idea that that's on, jamming up people in the criminal justice system still is what these states are rejecting. And I think, communities like ours, if we think like that, right? Minimum wage passed overwhelmingly in the state. Amendment 4 passed 2 years ago overwhelmingly in the state. So the attitude is there. We just need to mobilize the bodies.
And before we leave, Senator Bullard, give us some words on actionable items for moving forward.
My words are that we absolutely have to continue to have these tough conversations with these folks. As I mentioned, 46% of this county, of Miami-Dade County, went to Donald Trump. And I don't want to say that it's because all those votes were from racist people, but what we do know is that all the racists voted for Donald Trump, right? And so I need folks who voted for Donald Trump for whatever their mundane reason is to understand that you added your vote to people who hate me, right? And if you can't make that level of discernment, that you have somebody out here that is stoking the flames of racism and hatred, and you can't, make the conscious decision to say, all right, I'm not going to contribute to that, then that's a conversation that we got to continue to have, right? I need to know why. I need to know why you're okay with that. And we got to have this conversation about what we look like. If Miami-Dade and Orlando and all these places are going to be welcoming in all these tourists from all these different places to spend money and have a good time here, these folks want to come knowing that they're not going to, encounter abuses related to, skin color, ethnicity, or anything like that. And that's the only way we're going to flourish as a society and as a country. So let's continue to have those tough conversations.
Amen. And we'll continue to have this conversation tonight with the rest of the crew for My 2 Cents starting at 6 o'clock. We'll see you back here this evening at 6. Thanks so much, Senator Bullard.
Thank you.
The Culture is produced and owned by Hip Rock Star Media and cannot be reproduced or broadcast without written consent by Jessica Garrett Muckins. All rights reserved 2020.